I think there's a path. And Chris Broussard said something off the air yesterday. And he was like, could Kyrie for Anthony Davis be a thing? And as often happens when Broussard muses on things, I just dismissed it out of
I'll get rid of AD. I ain't gonna front.
It's not even worth discussing.
He get hurt too much.
A few hours later, I was on with my dear friend and mentor, Colin Cowherd, on what I consider to be the best podcast on the Volume Podcast Network, even though it is old media. And he proposed the exact same trade. And I'm like, well, it's one thing when Brew proposes it. But when Colin does, I'm like, I'm going to have to pay attention. But I was like, still, I don't think that works. I don't think if you're the Lakers, you can trade Anthony Davis for Kyrie Irving. But then I thought about it, and so I said to Colin, I was like, the Nets would have to give up more.
Yeah, that's something you got to think about.
More? And I said, oh, wait. What about the biggest, most blockbuster NBA trade ever? It's going to sound shocking, but then, Brew, what I would ask you is, do both teams have a 6-hour meeting about it? Do both teams say, okay, we need to get the whiteboard out?
I ain't gonna lie, Kevin Durant with AD would be really crazy. But Kyrie with Braun, that'd be crazy. Like, that'd be insane, them reuniting. Like, I always said, Kyrie should have just stayed with Braun, man. He should never left. But he was young and dumb. He admitted it on a podcast a couple of months ago. He apologized to Braun. Said that he was young-minded back then. So, I could see it happen. I would definitely get rid of it. Honestly speaking, if I'm Lakers, if you want to get another ring, I will get rid of AD. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I'm shipping him to Brooklyn because he gets hurt every single year. I don't think it's been a year where AD didn't get hurt. Like, it's since the Pelicans days, he's been getting hurt every single year. So, my problem for your problem. I give up both AD and Russ, and in return I'll get Kyrie, Ben Simmons, and either Patty Mills or Seth Curry, one of them.
And do pros, cons, and all of it. The trade is AD and Russ for Kyrie and Ben Simmons. So the best player in the trade goes to the Nets.
Shooter, bro.
The worst player in the trade goes to the Nets. Kyrie is a question mark. Ben Simmons is a question mark. None of them are as much of a... Russ isn't a question mark at this point. He's just a wrong answer. So you have the blue chipper in AD, plus Russ, a little reunite with Kevin Durant, plus the fact that he's expiring, to go along with Kyrie, who the relationship is souring, and Ben Simmons, who's never played for you. If you're the Lakers, Ben Simmons can play center. LeBron and Kyrie are reunited.
And KD and Russ was actually a solid duo.
See if it can work with Russ.
I mean, they got to the chip one time, then lost to Golden State, but it was all right.
Seth, Joe Harris, Patty Mills, and Kevin Durant. And if it doesn't work, you can buy him out midway through the year or just let the contract expire. That is a trade, Brew, that I think both teams have an all-hands-on-deck meeting for. Our second and third best player for your second and third best player. And let's see if we can shake the snow
Lakers
globe,
need at least one shooter,
Presley
though.
Constituted, both teams need to shake the damn snow globe.
Big time.
Lakers got to get at least one shooter out of that, though. Like, they need at least one more person. I think AD by himself requires two players. So that would be Kyrie and a shooter. And then Westbrook can just be for like a Ben Simmons or something.
Good morning, Jen. How are you today?
Is it really for Laker Nation? I can't wait to see if you're just like all those other delusional Lakers fans out there. We got Kyrie.
Whoa.
We got Kyrie.
I want you to keep that same energy if the Clippers get him, okay?
Facts. Keep that same energy.
I told you yesterday, we do not want him.
Man, Skip be lying.
Well, we do want him.
Okay.
And you should want him.
Yo, listen, Skip will be the first person to buy a Kyrie jersey if you go to the Clippers.
Okay.
He'll be the first person.
Guys, let's jump right in because this is an intriguing topic. Are the Nets' playoff chances over before they start next season? The Lakers among a handful of teams reportedly linked to Kyrie Irving. Big if, the The guard ends up parting ways with the Nets this offseason after what's reportedly now an impasse in contract negotiations.
Damn, Kyrie leave
Of course,
Brooklyn.
the
That'd be
Lakers
crazy, though.
already have LeBron, AD, and Russell Westbrook under contract for a combined $128 million next season. Shannon, that's a big bill.
Yes.
What percentage chance do you give the Lakers of acquiring Kyrie?
I give it a 1% chance.
Yeah.
I almost gave it a milk chance, which is
Now you know what it is. Nobody really wants Westbrook. It's like Brooklyn is not a huge market, but it's kind of they growing, they getting there. It's not like the Knicks or the Lakers. So maybe Westbrook would like flourish in Brooklyn, but it's he's a hard piece to move, especially after this past season. He played his worst season of his career, and it's not looking too good for him. Now, it all falls under Durant. So, like, if Durant says, I'll play with Westbrook again, then by all means, the Brooklyn Nets will definitely pick him up. But this is going to be a tough offseason for both the Nets and the Lakers.
2%, but I'm gonna go even lower than that, Skip. I think it's a 1% chance, and I think it's
Yeah,
very
it's like
highly
1%.
unlikely that they're able to do this. But just for the sake of argument, if they were able to pull this off, I think that vaults them to the top of the list of the leaderboard as being the favorite to win the championship.
Facts.
I give them a 35% chance of winning it. Now,
Well, how did they?
38-year-old Bron getting a chip.
well, you know, Russ, you know, I mean, somebody out there want Russ, Skip.
Not the Nets.
Yeah, no.
Maybe somebody, but not the Nets.
Yes,
Well, maybe we can-
tough.
Let's see. If I'm Joe Side, the owner, I say.
Or they get like a three-team
Kyrie
trade.
with Russell Westbrook.
No. Skip, but hey, that's part of the problem is that Kyrie understands that I believe Kyrie is in an advantageous situation because the team's best player happens to be Kyrie's best friend.
I would try to involve a third team, Indiana Pacers. Send Brogdon to Brooklyn, Kyrie to LA, and then Westbrook to Indiana. Let him go bonkers in Indiana. So I will give Brooklyn, Malcolm Brogdon, and Buddy Hield, another shooter, fire for the Nets. I will give if I'm Brooklyn, I'll give the Lakers Ben Simmons and Kyrie. Valid. And then if I'm the Lakers, I'm gonna just ship Westbrook and probably a draft pick or something to them to Indiana and just let Westbrook do whatever he wants. Because I think Indiana is ready to blow everything up and just start over from scratch again.
KD did not sign up to come to Brooklyn, and all of a sudden, there's no Kyrie.
Yeah,
They
nah.
had James Harden. There's no James Harden.
James
He
Harden's
did not come
sold.
to play with Ben Simmons and a bunch of role players. That's not why he came to Brooklyn. He left Golden State believing, striking out on his own, Skip, that I can win a championship as the lead dog on a good team with another great player. Well,
Remember Kyrie at the All-Star game? 2 max.
we got 2 back right. So now all of a sudden there's no James Harden, there's no Kyrie, there's Kevin Durant and Ben Simmons and some role players.
And all of a sudden they're saying to Kyrie, no max.
No
for
max.
you, right?
Well, Skip, they said we're willing to give
The
you
Nets
max,
is playing
but
with
it's not
fire.
8 years.
Right.
Maybe we're willing to do 3 years, but we can't go to the full max.
The Nets
which
is playing
5
with
years.
fire
And
right now. I
Kyrie-
ain't gonna
$50
front.
million.
Kyrie like, nah, bro, I need all that.
Yeah.
So is there another team out there, Skip? I believe there is a team. I don't know if the Lakers can get to that.
Nets is playing with fire right now. Like, if y'all let Kyrie walk for nothing, because I believe he got opt out, and probably the end of this week he could opt out. I think the 29th. If they let Kyrie walk for nothing, the Nets is going to be in a load of trouble because Kevin Durant might actually leave too. He might demand a trade. Like, to be honest, because he ain't signed for this. He signed up to play with Kyrie. That's his best friend. James Harden tagged along. James Harden, I don't know what he did. He just pulled the Houdini and just left, went to Philly. Now it's looking like Kyrie and the organization is having problems. Durant don't want this. So he might leave, and if I'm Durant, I'm thinking like, damn, I should just stay with Golden State and just forget what everybody else said.
Kyrie Irving is getting an extension somewhere. Somebody is going to pay him more than 2 years because
Yeah, he
Kyrie
definitely getting that
Irving is a great
extension.
basketball player. Perk, it's obvious that this is a player-driven league. We all know that. The players, have a say. The top of the food chain has a say in who's hired, who's fired, who's traded. We've all gone through that. We know
Perk
that
a
the
hater.
best player on the team has a decision. The second best player on the team usually is in the room as well. I've been there. I've been in that situation, right? As the second best player on the team, I've been in the room for those conversations. So we know that Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving had a say in who was hired, and will also have a say in who's fired. So I think there was nothing wrong with what Kyrie Irving said.
Speaking of fired, if I'm Brooklyn, you got to get rid of Steve Nash. Steve Nash is like more of a development coach. I think that's who he was with the Golden State Warriors. A head coaching job, I think that's a lot on his plate. Cause let's think. All right, let's think about it. This year they got swept by Boston. He made no changes in the lineup whatsoever. Last year they lost by literally a toenail on the line to the Bucks. So he probably had nothing. He had no control over that one. But this year he definitely had control over it. Even if the Nets would have lost, getting swept is crazy, especially in the first round. Is crazy. Especially when you got two of the best scorers in the world on one team. You weren't supposed to get swept. If I'm the Brooklyn Nets, I got that in the back of my head going into the whole season. Like, if we do sign Kyrie a max deal, do we want to keep Steve Nash as the head coach or go another route?
In terms of figuring out what their franchise needs, because if they're going to keep him as a part of that team, he's going to be in those conversations because he needs to be comfortable, right? KD needs to be comfortable. At the end of the day, it comes down to those two, and it comes down to health. I said this earlier today. The Brooklyn Nets probably would have already won a championship if Kyrie doesn't get hurt, right? Kevin Durant scores 46 points, basically has a triple-double, steps on the line with a spinning three-pointer. They would have beat Milwaukee. Without a healthy Kyrie, they still almost beat them. He put the team on his back. So they're that close, right, to getting over the hump and getting, to the Eastern Conference Finals. Why would you risk giving up, as you talked about, Stephen A? You call him box office, which is there's levels to this, right? Like there's good players.
He's on that level, and he's on that level.
So if he's box office, we all been to the casino. Summer League's coming up in Vegas. I'm a blackjack man myself. Might play a little roulette too. I'm willing to roll the dice. If you got
to put the house on Kyrie. You have to.
Well, here, let me answer that.
You got to put the house on Kyrie.
Again, hold on, I'm going to come to you, Kendrick Perkins. First of all, CJ, don't be too slick now. I love you. Don't be too slick now. Availability matters most.
I think LeBron's best teammate was Kyrie Irving. I think Kyrie complements LeBron's game better than any other player he played with. AD, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, you name it. I think Kyrie was LeBron's best fit. Because, here's why. Wade and Braun was literally the same players. They slash, cut, create for others. Wade couldn't shoot. LeBron was then developing his shot. Anthony Davis is always getting hurt, so it's like, you can't take the load off LeBron. Kyrie really took the load off LeBron, like, a lot. Like, there was a lot of games where Kyrie just took over. Like, especially in the finals, a lot of games he took over in crunch time. LeBron had the 41-point games in the finals. Kyrie followed up with, I think, with like a 26 the next game. Had a closeout game against the Warriors. Hit the game-winning shot. Yeah, Kyrie needs to just go to L.A., make amends with Braun, and try to bring his chip.